In a world torn by broken alliances, one man of steel and one man of iron found unity in the ashes of war. But peace is never permanent. A tear in the multiverse was opened, not by fate, but by fury. And from it marched a ghost of the past, wearing a crimson skull. His war never ended, it just evolved. Now the two greatest minds must face history's darkest resurrection. The skies above New York darkened, not from clouds, but from cracks in reality. Streets shimmered unnaturally. People stopped mid-step, eyes glued to a tear in the sky that hummed like a dying star. Out of nowhere, the Statue of Liberty flickered, splitting between two versions. One green and proud, the other rusted, burning, with a Hydra flag fluttering at its feet. Superman hovered silently above the chaos, his cape barely moving, but his eyes burning red with concern. This wasn't his world. This wasn't Earth, one. But the energy pulsing through the air. He'd felt it before, when timelines collapse, when dimensions scream. He wasn't here by accident. Something had called him across the multiverse, and it wasn't a cry for help. It was a challenge. On the ground below, Iron Man streaked through the skyline, repulsors glowing like twin suns. Friday, overlay anomaly patterns. This thing's rewriting landmarks in real time. Confirmed. Manhattan is overlapping with historical data from 1943 and 2099. Simultaneously, Tony cursed under his breath. That's not just time travel. That's a timeline meltdown. Then he saw it, the blur of blue and red in the sky. Not Captain Marvel, not Spider-Man. No, this was different. This guy moved like a bullet through clouds and hovered like a god. Tony zoomed in. The S-shield was unmistakable. Friday? Is that? Affirmative. Kryptonian energy signature. That's Kal-El. Tony sighed. Of course it is. Why wouldn't a flying alien demigod show up when the world's glitching out? Before he could say more, Superman landed with the force of a thunderclap, shaking the pavement. Civilians ducked, cars alarmed. But his voice was calm. This world is under dimensional stress. Who leads the defense? Tony dropped beside him with a classic smirk. That'd be me. Iron Man billionaire, genius, philanthropist. Also the guy who usually fixes multiversal nightmares. Superman didn't smile. You're tampering with unstable energy. Something has opened a tear between realms. I noticed. You got any experience patching up realities? I've stopped entire timelines from eating themselves alive. Tony raised an eyebrow. Nice. Want to do it again? The two shook hands, heavy, hesitant. Titans meeting for the first time. And somewhere in the background, a red glow pulsed inside the rift. Watching. As they walked through the chaos side by side, the ground beneath them started to rewrite itself. Sidewalks became cobblestones. Street signs blinked between English and German. People morphed into soldiers in flashes, then back again, dazed and confused. Superman placed a steadying hand on a child who had just flickered into a young soldier holding a Hydra flag. The boy dropped it instantly, confused, eyes filling with tears. This is spreading, Superman said. Tony nodded grimly. Whatever's causing this, it's not just ripping timelines. It's replacing them. That's when the first wave hit. A rip opened in midair, and out came soldiers, not just Hydra grunts, but multiversal variants. Some with mech suits, others with glowing runes etched into their skulls. They marched forward in perfect silence, their weapons aimed high. Superman was airborne before the first shot was fired. His heat vision sliced through enemy armor with surgical precision, never lethal. Tony launched into the air beside him, missiles locking, repulsors blazing. What followed wasn't just a fight, it was a dance of legends. Superman caught a falling building mid-collapse, while Iron Man vaporized the energy source, causing the distortion. Together, they coordinated in perfect rhythm. A civilian was pulled from a car seconds before it blinked into a Nazi-era tank. A bus full of school kids reappeared on the side of a crumbling bridge. Superman carried the bus to safety, while Tony sealed the rift beneath it. When the dust settled and the final blast faded, both heroes landed on a cracked rooftop, breathing heavy, glowing with energy. The city below them was stabilizing, but only for now. Superman spoke first. Someone is using multiversal pressure points, testing the resistance of this reality. Not just testing, Tony replied, pulling up a hologram. They're calculating it, like an invasion strategy. Every attack is surgical, strategic. Friday interrupted. Sir, I've traced the origin point of the dimensional cracks. It's not from this universe. Superman's gaze sharpened. Then it's from mine? Negative, Friday answered. It's from between universes. A no man's land of time. But one signature repeats. It's old. Hydra old. The hologram lit up. A face emerged. Skull-like. Red. Superman froze. Who is that? Tony's expression darkened. That is supposed to be dead. Clearly he's not. Tony nodded. Red Skull. Superman processed that. Your world's Luthor? Tony shook his head. No. Worse. This guy doesn't want control. He wants domination of ideology. He's a fanatic. And if he's learned to manipulate the multiverse, Superman completed the thought, then no reality is safe. Lightning split the sky again, this time not from a rift, but from a distant point on the horizon. A tower of red light pierced through the clouds like a beacon. Tony looked at Kal-El. You up for this? Superman nodded. I don't lose worlds. Tony smirked. Neither do I. And with a sonic boom and a repulsor roar, they launched into the sky. Two of the greatest minds and might of their worlds, headed toward a war no one could fully understand yet. A war started not by Thanos, not by Lex Luthor, not even by Kong, but by a ghost with a red skull and a plan that spanned realities. The Crimson Tower tore through the clouds like a wound that refused to heal. Its energy pulsed across the skyline, flickering reality every few seconds. Entire skyscrapers vanished and reappeared as Hydra fortresses from a forgotten war. Somewhere inside that pulsing light, history itself was being rewritten. Iron Man and Superman streaked through the sky toward it. Twin streaks of light, one red, one gold. The city beneath them was chaos. Cars hovering in midair, streets looping like broken film, fragments of time clashing in violent bursts. In one blink, they flew over Manhattan. In the next, over 1940s Berlin. The multiverse was glitching, folding in on itself. Energy levels off the charts, Tony said, glancing at his HUD. This isn't a portal anymore. It's an anchor. Something's pulling realities together. Superman's eyes flared. Someone's trying to merge worlds. Then they heard it, the voice. A deep, echoing command that carried through dimensions like a sermon. Humanity thrives only under control, and I am its correction. The tower exploded outward with a pulse of red light. From the ashes, a figure stepped out, not the Red Skull they remembered from history books or files. This one was taller, wrapped in a black and crimson exosuit, with cables feeding into his flesh. His eyes glowed like dying suns. He looked less like a man, more like an ideology given form. Hydra is eternal, the voice thundered. Even death obeys me now. Tony's scanners struggled to focus. That's impossible. He was vaporized decades ago. Superman's jaw tightened. Not vaporized, displaced. He found the cracks between timelines and lived there. Red Skull raised his hand, and reality itself trembled. I watched universes burn and heroes kneel. I learned the truth. The multiverse is not chaos, it's a weapon. Before Tony could respond, Red Skull gestured, and the skyline warped again. From the distortions stepped variants, alternate versions of heroes, twisted reflections of those they loved. A darker Captain America, with a Hydra emblem burned into his shield. A Black Widow with cybernetic eyes. And worst of all, an Iron Man in black armor with a Hydra insignia glowing on his chest. Tony froze. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Superman clenched his fists. He's cloning realities, rebuilding armies from fractured echoes. Correct, Red Skull said. And when I merge them all, no god, no genius, no alien will stand above HYD array. With a wave of his hand, the army charged. Tony blasted forward, unleashing a wall of repulsor fire. Superman shot through the lines like a comet, bodies scattering as he blurred through the field. The HYDRA Iron Man intercepted him mid-flight, matching his every move, every strike. It wasn't just mimicry. It was Tony's own combat data, stolen through the multiversal code. Superman slammed him through a building, but the clone reassembled instantly, nanotech crawling back into shape. "Your morality makes you weak," the clone said. Tony Stark should have joined HYDRA. At least they know how to finish what they start. Tony responded with a grin. "Yeah, let's finish this, then." He switched his reactor to overdrive. The blast lit up the skyline. Superman followed through with a sonic punch that sent shockwaves across the bay. The HYDRA Iron Man dissolved into fragments, screaming as his AI burned out. But it wasn't enough. Red Skull extended his arms, absorbing the fragments back into himself. The energy flowed into his chest plate, glowing brighter with every soul consumed. "Every copy you destroy, every echo you erase, makes me stronger." The ground cracked. Lightning bled red. The sky flickered between worlds, Asgard, Gotham, Wakanda, all flashing in seconds. Superman hovered, his voice steady. "You're destroying everything. You'll collapse all realities." "That is the point," Red Skull said. "A single perfect order, not infinite chaos." Tony's armor pinged with hundreds of alarms. Cal, he's not bluffing. The longer that rift stays open, the more universes will fuse into one. We'll lose everything. Yours, mine, all of it. Superman turned toward Tony. "Then we end it here." Tony nodded. "You hit him hard. I'll hit him smart." They split, one streaking upward, one downward. Red Skull tracked both, laughing. Two worlds, united in futility. Superman broke the sound barrier, diving straight into the red core of the tower, punching through waves of corrupted energy. Tony flew beneath the collapsing ground, dropping micropulse grenades into the dimensional roots that fed the rift. Inside the core, Superman faced something beyond logic. Every punch he threw, the energy reformed. Every blast of heat vision just spawned more fragments of Red Skull's face, whispering Hydra slogans like a virus. "You can't kill an idea," the echoes hissed. Superman roared back, "Then I'll erase it." He unleashed full heat vision intensity, carving through the chaos until the core split, a beam of pure white light shooting skyward. Tony seized the moment. "Friday, detonate sequence Gamma 9. Warning, sir, that will destabilize." "Do it." A surge of quantum fire erupted from the ground. The tower imploded, reality snapping back into place like elastic under strain. The red light flickered, then vanished. Smoke cleared. Superman floated above the wreckage, battered but alive. Tony's armor was cracked, reactor dimming, but he was smiling. "Nice hit," Superman said. Tony coughed. "You too. Not bad for a guy who wears his logo on his chest." But their relief lasted only seconds. A low hum echoed through the air. The ashes of the tower began to swirl, not disappearing, but reforming. The dust rose, reshaping into a massive figure of light and shadow. The Red Skull's voice returned, deeper, colder. "Did you think I built only one tower?" Behind them, 4 new rifts opened, smaller, but pulsing faster. Each one connected to a different reality. Through them, silhouettes appeared, other versions of Red Skull, each armed with weapons from alternate worlds. One carried a Mjolnir carved with Hydra runes. Another war armor made from Stark tech fused with alien symbiotes. A third had eyes like glowing kryptonite. Tony's HUD glitched. "Oh great, multiversal boss fight." Superman's fists clenched. "Then we don't stop one Red Skull. We stop all of them." Tony smirked, despite the chaos. "Now you're talking my language." And as the skies burned crimson again, and the world shook under the arrival of an infinite army, Superman and Iron Man took flight once more. 2 heroes from separate worlds, fighting a war that neither universe was ready to face. Because Red Skull wasn't just back. He was building an empire across every timeline. The Earth shook under the weight of war it never asked for. From the 4 rifts in the sky, reality spat out armies not meant to coexist. Not just Hydra soldiers, but twisted versions of fallen heroes and corrupted legends. You could see them storming in through the dimensional tiers. One Thor with glowing red eyes and a serpent wrapped around his hammer. Another Black Panther fused with Ultron tech. There was even a Batman in black and crimson, his bat symbol replaced by Hydra's skull. Superman soared above the chaos, eyes darting, scanning. His heat vision flared but didn't fire. Not yet. He needed a plan, not a reaction. Below him, Iron Man hovered, armor visibly strained, systems flickering. But his mind was still sharp. "This is bigger than multiversal collapse," Tony muttered. "It's a merger, a convergence. They're trying to fuse timelines into a single obedient stream, controlled by one ideology." Superman's voice carried a weight heavier than steel. Hydra's version of utopia. Then came the transmission, hijacked on every frequency. Screens lit up across every device. Even the sky shimmered with the projection. Red Skull's face emerged, not the flesh and bone version, but a glowing cybernetic mask wired directly into the fabric of reality itself. You built a multiverse of mistakes. Infinite heroes, infinite failures. I offer one truth, one rule, one world under AI-reimagined. In London, shields rose. In Wakanda, warning sirens screamed. In Atlantis, the sea itself turned against its protectors. Hydra was activating sleeper nodes across every timeline, pre-programmed to respond once the convergence began. Iron Man's systems lit up in red. Stark's satellites being overridden. "He's using my tech in 6 universes at once." Superman frowned. "Then we take the fight to him." They launched toward the nearest rift, a fiery vortex hovering above the Pacific Ocean. It pulsed with unstable time echoes, drawing parts of ancient civilizations and future colonies into its swirl. Inside, a massive floating platform hovered, covered in Hydra banners stitched with arcane runes. As they entered, gravity warped. Time bent. 1 second they were mid-flight. The next they stood in a blackened hall, lit only by fire and shadow. Waiting for them was a council, 4 versions of Red Skull, each from a different timeline. One wore Asgardian armor, his skin almost golden, his voice echoing with thunder. Another was a tech-freak hybrid of Ultron and Skull, emotionless, speaking only in binary commands. A third sat in a black cloak, silent, flanked by ghostly Kryptonian symbols. The fourth smiled. He looked normal. No enhancements, no armor. Just a man who believed. "You're not fighting a villain," he said. "You're fighting evolution." Superman didn't wait. He lunged, fist glowing, punching through the closest skull, only to find it was a decoy. A dozen more projections emerged, circling them. Iron Man activated a multi-phased energy pulse, disrupting the illusion. "We're wasting time. These aren't leaders. They're echoes." From behind the wall of flame, a roar echoed. Then a figure stepped out, 10 feet tall, armored in red-black vibranium, eyes glowing green with kryptonite-infused tech. This wasn't just Red Skull anymore. This was AI-reimagined Prime, a fusion of every version, every strength, and every weapon. He struck first. A shockwave of anti-energy blasted both heroes into the air. Superman crashed through 3 layers of temporal shields, and Iron Man's armor sputtered mid-air, barely rebooting before he hit the platform. Hydra Prime advanced. "Do you know how many Supermen I've broken? How many Iron Men I've absorbed into my collective?" Superman stood up, cracked his neck, and wiped blood from his lip. "Then add one more failure to your list." They fought with fury, speed, and strategy. Superman overwhelming with power, Iron Man calculating weak spots in real time. But every hit they landed made AI-reimagined Prime stronger. He adapted with each strike, evolving like a living virus. "His body's coded in multiversal logic," Tony shouted. "We can't just fight him. We need to outthink him." Then, as the tower shook with explosions above, a new voice echoed. "You always try to do it alone." From a portal behind them stepped Doctor Strange, cloak flaring, hands glowing with eldritch power. With him came backup, not just from one world, but many. Thor appeared, spinning Mjolnir. Black Panther leapt from shadow. Even Batman, silent and grim, emerged from the dark, eyes focused on the enemy ahead. "I pulled strings across time," Strange said. "These are the ones who remember what free will looks like." Superman nodded. "Then let's remind HYDRA. What followed was not a battle, it was war. Thor clashed with the Asgardian skull, lightning exploding through the air. Batman faced his own corrupted version, using tactics his evil twin could never predict. Black Panther outmaneuvered symbiote-enhanced Hydra soldiers, slashing through their armor like butter. Doctor Strange levitated, forming a sigil above the battlefield, a spell to collapse the rift. "I need 1 minute. Then we buy it," Iron Man said, taking off with a sonic boom. Superman and HYDRA Prime collided again, fists, heat vision, brute force. But this time, Clark had backup. Tony unleashed a sonic EMP that disrupted Prime's adaptive core. Batman threw an entropy bomb that destabilized the multiversal code. Then Strange began the incantation. The skies turned white. Reality itself shimmered. Hydra Prime screamed, lunging for the sorcerer. But Superman flew in like a missile, tackling him through 5 walls of solid light. You don't get to rewrite history. With Strange's final words, the spell activated. Each rift started collapsing in reverse, like film being rewound. The HYDRA variants vanished one by one. The corrupted timelines retracted like tendrils pulling back into darkness. Hydra Prime convulsed, screaming as his body split into thousands of glitching fragments. Then silence. The skies cleared. The Earth was back. Time was still. On a hill overlooking the ruins of the battlefield, Superman stood with his cape torn. Iron Man's suit smoked but held. Around them, heroes breathed, bruised but alive. Tony looked up. "Remind me to never fight a multiversal dictator before coffee again." Superman smiled faintly. "Only if you pay next time." But Strange wasn't smiling. This wasn't the end. It was the test. Tony raised an eyebrow. "You saying there's more?" Strange nodded. The Red Skull saw something in the multiverse. Something darker than himself. He wasn't conquering it. He was running from it. Superman's eyes narrowed. From what? Strange looked at the stars. A shadow without form. A voice from before universes. Something even Hydra feared. And just like that, the heroes realized. The war had only just begun. The battlefield was quiet. Smoke drifted across ruined buildings. Hydra Prime had been destroyed. The rifts had collapsed. But no one celebrated. Superman stood at the edge of a fractured rooftop, staring at the horizon. His cape torn, eyes fixed on something far beyond this world. Iron Man hovered nearby, running silent scans, his systems glitching from multiversal residue. Strange levitated behind them, still channeling magic, not to attack, but to listen. Something was still moving. Not in this world, not even in the timelines they'd just sealed, but in the space between timelines, a void no science or spell had ever fully mapped. A place that Red Skull had tried to escape into, and then away from. He wasn't trying to conquer, Strange said. He was fleeing. Something saw him, followed him. Something older than time itself. Iron Man's visor flickered. Define something. Strange turned. A consciousness. A will. Not alive in the way we understand it. It doesn't want to rule. It wants to erase. Existence offends it. Superman stepped forward. Where is it now? Strange paused. It's not in any single reality. It's waiting in the cracks. We closed the rifts, but that caught its attention. Suddenly, the sky pulsed black, not dark, but the absence of all light. For half a second, the sun flickered. The wind died. Time stalled. And then the whispers began. Not words, not language, a presence. Tony's HUD shut off. His suit dropped to the ground, powerless. No signal, no energy. It's not disrupting tech, it's deleting it. Superman took to the air, but even his flight stuttered. Gravity warped. Space twisted. Strange summoned a shield, but it cracked in his hands. Something descended. Not a shape, not a form, a void with intent. It wasn't a creature. It was an anti-being, something that existed only to cancel out other things. Its presence rewrote physics. The clouds above unraveled. Stars blinked out. Doctor Strange said the name, like a curse barely spoken. The Null One. Across the globe, heroes sensed it. Storm lost her weather sense. Flash stopped mid-run, trapped in a frozen second. Wanda Maximoff looked into the mirror and saw nothing reflecting back. The Null One wasn't attacking. It was unmaking. Superman launched toward the center of the distortion, his heat vision roaring brighter than ever, and vanished mid-flight. No scream, no sound, just absence. "I lost him," Strange whispered. "He's not dead. He's removed." Iron Man's suit rebooted, barely, but his face was pale. It doesn't kill, it edits, like a cosmic delete key. Then, out of nowhere, a pulse of light burst from the sky. Superman reappeared, gasping for breath, falling hard. Batman caught him with the Batwing's grapple, landing him safely. "What happened?" Tony asked, helping him up. Superman's voice trembled for the first time in years. "There's no light in there, no thought, just a hunger for silence. It tried to erase my origin, not me. My story, my reason." The air grew colder. The stars overhead warped into spirals. Time skipped a beat again. Strange knew what had to be done. "We can't fight it here. It's too strong in the living multiverse. We need to trap it where it can't exist." Tony's brain lit up. "A pocket zone, between quantum string layers. I can build it, but it needs something to anchor to, a fixed point, a story too big to erase." All eyes turned to Superman. He nodded. "I'll be the anchor." Tony looked at him. "You sure? If this goes wrong, I'm the only one with a story strong enough to challenge nothingness." While Iron Man began constructing a multi-dimensional compression device, Strange opened an unstable portal to the exozone, a place where time flowed backward and forward at once. It was a realm outside of all logic, beyond even chaos. But even the Null One sensed what was coming. It accelerated. The world began pixelating, not metaphorically, but literally. Trees turned to particles. Oceans became flat. History began collapsing in reverse. "I need more time," Tony yelled, his armor overheating. Superman stepped into the compression chamber. "You'll have it." Then, as the Null One descended fully into Earth's plane, Superman shot into the sky, flying straight into the void, carrying with him the one object the Null One had never faced, a complete, unbroken story. Hope. He punched through the atmosphere, through time, through concept. Inside the exozone, Strange began chanting the trap spell. Iron Man synchronized the chamber with 10 different timelines using the last of his arc reactor core. And in the final second, Superman reached the heart of the Null One and screamed his truth. "I am not just strength. I am not just speed. I am the reason people believe tomorrow can be better." The trap activated. Light engulfed the sky. The Null One twisted, distorted, shrieked, not in sound, but in broken silence. Then it was gone. Reality snapped back. Superman fell from the sky, barely breathing, but smiling. Iron Man caught him midair, slowing the fall. "It's over," Tony said. Strange nodded, exhausted. For now. The Null One had been sealed, not destroyed. But for the first time, it knew resistance. And Earth had told the multiverse one message. You can rewrite timelines. You can erase villains. But you can't delete the will to fight back. The sky was whole again. No rifts, no void, no static in the stars. The Null One was sealed, locked beyond time in the exozone, a prison built from impossible energy, anchored by Superman's very legacy. Red Skull's empire of alternate Hydra variants was shattered. Earth 616, Earth 1, Earth Beyond, all of them still existed, scarred but alive. But heroes don't rest after war. They rebuild. Superman hovered above the Earth in orbit, silently watching. Not as a god, as a guardian. The weight of what he'd carried, a cosmic being trying to erase his very reason for being, still sat heavy on his chest. Below, Iron Man worked on a fusion beacon, a failsafe in case the Null One ever stirred again. His suit was scorched, half repaired, his left arm in a sling. "I should have built this 10 years ago," Tony muttered, tightening a glowing bolt. "You weren't ready," came Batman's voice behind him. "None of us were." Tony smirked without looking back. "And now we are?" "No," Batman said deadpan. "But we know what not being ready costs." Across the globe, Strange patched the multiverse like a surgeon, sewing wounds across the skin of reality. Wanda and Thor helped rebuild the time anchors. Black Panther reconnected the vibranium nexus. Every hero, every survivor played their part. At the Hall of Heroes, Strange gathered the core team: Iron Man, Superman, Batman, Thor, and Captain Marvel. "The multiverse is stabilizing," Strange said. "But the barrier we use to trap the null one won't last forever." "How long do we have?" Tony asked. "Maybe a decade, maybe less." Superman nodded. "Then we spend every day preparing for what's next." Captain Marvel leaned against the console. "What if it's not just next, but more?" Strange looked at them with haunted eyes. "There are others, older, deeper, not villains, concepts, things that were here before stories. They watched this battle, and they're curious now." Thor stood, hammer crackling. "Then let them come." But Superman raised a hand. "No, let them wait." Everyone turned. He looked at Tony, then at Batman. "We just proved something today. That a single belief that tomorrow matters can shut down even the void itself. Let them know Earth isn't just defended by power. It's defended by meaning." Iron Man chuckled. "You've been reading my PR lines." Superman smiled. "I've been living them." They all stood together, not as Avengers, not as Justice League, but something new. Not a team, not a council. A warning to any being, any force, any void that ever dared return. You can break timelines. You can rewrite history. But if even one hero stands, you will lose. Outside the hall, kids wore red capes and glowing arc reactors. The world had seen the edge of nothing, and it chose to keep dreaming.